Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well. A lot has been happening, as everybody knows. So, without further ado, I am going to cover some of the terrain by plunging in with a question from Marsha Bass. Of course Megsy is playing I Turned Down the Met Gala. But it is being reported here in America that celebrities didn't want her and Harry there for fear their conversations would be repeated or recorded. This will not go down well at William Morris. It will be hard for them to represent somebody that cannot be trusted. And have I heard anything similar? Yes, I have. I think, if I'm not mistaken, when Meghan and her people announced that she was going to be at the Met Gala, of course, she didn't do it personally, but her people did it, in much the same way that do you remember when she was going to present the best film at the Oscars? And when she was going to present St. Peter with the keys to the pearly gate? Well, I did say at the time that I didn't think it was very likely. One of the reasons why I didn't think it was very likely was that Anna Wintour was somebody who admired the Queen. Now, anybody who admires the Queen, anybody who has any hope of or desire to have or maintain a connection with the King, the present Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales, will not be giving Meghan Markle pride of place or even a mere looking at anything that's high profile. There is also the fact that, I have said this repeatedly, A-listers on both sides of the Atlantic, and I use that word hesitantly because I think it has very tacky overtones, but for the sake of ease, it gets the message across. Certainly people in royal and aristocratic circles, or those who wish to remain connected in any way, shape or form with them, will know that Meghan is the kiss of death to any connection with the King, the Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales. That is the people who would be attending the Met Gala. If they thought that Meghan Markle was going to be there, they would run a mile. Let me put it that way. Olivia Knepfer says, I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Please, I hope I did. Dear Lady Campbell, greetings from Lake Constance. Greetings to you too, my dear. Please allow me a question. I would like to hear your opinion about the recent interview of Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal. This was with Canadian television. I thought it was very remarkable. All the best for you and a wonderful ball at Castle Goring. Well, I have to tell you, the place is heaving. I mean, I am so beyond stressed out and overextended and, quite frankly, wrung out. I cannot tell you. I don't get a moment's peace at this point. So it's not been easy, but thanks. Fingers crossed the ball is going to be good. Although last week they said it wasn't going to be raining. This week they say it's going to be raining. So fingers crossed is what? This is Britain. What can I tell you? You know. Anyway, yes, the CBC interview was remarkable. You know, say what you will about Princess Anne. She is just fabulous. She is so solid, sound, sensible, down-to-earth, pragmatic, dispassionate, while being impassioned, which is rarely a mark of a spiritually evolved person. She's just sound and solid with sensible ideas and no pussyfooting around and you know, no palaver and no nonsense. She, like me, doesn't agree with a slimmed down monarchy. Well, finally, a senior member of the family has come out and has said what I have been saying for years. It was obvious. It was impractical. I mean, if you understand the purpose of a royal family, it can't be slimmed down in a country of this size. Well, it can't be too slimmed down. So she was absolutely right there. And of course, she's one of the most hardworking members of the family. And rarely, unless they're going to clone her and everybody else, they need new blood. She was also no nonsense about reparations. Of course, I would say that because everything I have been saying, she agrees with. Slavery, again, she puts in its proper context and made the point that several of you have made to me when the subject comes up, that slavery still exists today. Why be obsessed with the past when it's in the present? And the fact that it's now illegal makes it even worse that it's being practiced. She argued, which I have done all along. Now, okay, we're both Leos, but I don't think that's the connection. I think it's just that we're both well-educated, realistic, sufficiently sophisticated and intelligent and pragmatic to see the reality, including the historical context. You know, you can't divorce the past from its context anymore. You can divorce the present from its context. I thought she was fantastic. Several people have said, oh, she would make a wonderful monarch. She would have made a wonderful monarch, but the king is going to make a perfectly good monarch, and he has his wonderful sister to back him up. And she is very much feet planted on the ground and no nonsense. She is not influenced by trends and charm and rhetoric the way her brother is. She is her father's daughter. She's also her mother's daughter. She was very close to her mother as well. She's just fabulous. There are no two ways about it. And she was so forthcoming in a very decorous and gentle and at the same time decisive and to the point way. Just capital. IP22 says, Lady C, in this week's Sunday Times, Emily Maitlis expressed a degree of regret about the way she handled Prince Andrew's interview. She mirrored two of the conclusions you've made previously. One, that he was naive and doing it to give him a clear run before his daughter's wedding. And two, he wasn't aware of the potentially disastrous effect it would have on his and his daughter's lives. Do you think she now feels maybe she should have done more to rescue him from his own gullibility? That's a very good question, and I read the article. I don't know if Emily Maitlis, who's evidently very clever and very resourceful and very ambitious, I don't know if the regrets that she has expressed are heartfelt or career motivated. They are possibly a combination of the two. I've only met her for the blink of an eyelid. I have to say, I think she is a very capable journalist. I also made the point at the time, and I will make it again and again and again, that she allowed Prince Andrew, in his ignorance, to catapult himself into a hole that he was not aware existed, but she was aware existed, and she's admitted it. Is she now having regrets? It appears so. And if it does, she's more decent than I would otherwise have given her credit for being. But the damage is done, and she had to have known at the time that he was cocking things up because of naivety, and that his statements were heartfelt, and that he thought he was doing the right thing so that he could walk his daughter down the aisle without all of the speculation and distasteful aura surrounding Virginia Giuffre's accusations. He did it, and I'm glad that Emily Maitlis has finally twigged why he did it. He did it to preserve his daughters from contumely, and Emily Maitlis helped to create the opportunity for greater contumely. Does she regret it? She certainly appears to regret it. And if she does, I hope she beats herself up something rotten, because don't tell me that a journalist of her stature and experience didn't know exactly what she was doing, because she did. I have said on this program before that I was in a similar situation, and that my bacon was saved by the journalist, who was decent and responsible and understood I was making a blunder that, if she printed, would help to damage me. Emily Maitlis knew. She was delighted. She thought, Geronimo, this is going to make my career. What she now was hinting at is that it has defined her career, but not in a positive way. So maybe her regret is the regret of many a person as he is, or she is about to step into the execution chamber, not because of what they did, but because they were found out. Well, at least she has regret. So, and now I am going to hopefully whiz through the rest of Prince Harry's witness statement. In the witness statement, he touches upon the matter of Lord Guyte and Sir Edward Young. Christopher Guyte was the Queen's private secretary before Sir Edward Young. And Christopher Guyte was, to a large extent, shoved out by the present king and Prince Andrew, because Christopher Guyte ran a very tight ship and wouldn't allow the shilly-shallying that both Charles and Andrew wished to indulge in, and began to indulge in under Sir Edward Young's watch. Harry, of course, hints at Sir Christopher, now Lord Guyte, being shoved out by saying in the witness statement, had he been allowed to stay in post. Well, that's a clear indication that Lord Guyte was shoved out. Now, we all know he was shoved out. But does Harry have to violate yet another confidence? The answer is yes. Harry, who cares greatly about his privacy to such an extent that if you even innocuously invade it, you are a horrid, evil person. But where his violations of not only people's privacy, but their confidences are concerned, that's okay. He thinks that everything would have turned out very differently if Christopher Guyte hadn't been, quote unquote, forced out. So he drops Charles in it. And he is alluding at this point to the conversations Christopher Guyte was having with Rebecca Brooks. And in terms of settling the disaffected and the complaints, really, of the royal family with regard to anything untoward that had taken place in the past. The conclusion Harry comes to could be right, in that things would have turned out differently, actually across the board, had Christopher Guyte remained in post. However, what he seems to be unaware of is that had Christopher Guyte remained in post, there is no way Harry would have been allowed to go behind anybody's back, instruct new solicitors, issue proceedings without anybody's knowledge. And when he is told he can't do it, he does it nevertheless. There would have been consequences. So he then complains that he was left out of the loop over the Tom Bradby voicemail hack. This is incidentally nothing to do with the Sun. It's about the news of the world. So, quite what it has to do with anything is, except of course, as a manipulative device and as yet another poor me complaint. It eludes me, and I'm sure it's going to elude Mr. Justice Fancourt. Harry says, I don't know why I was kept out of the loop. Perhaps they thought that I, being the younger brother, didn't need to know this sort of thing or wasn't equipped to deal with something so serious. Harry, you don't expect William to be kept in the loop over your affairs, but you expect to be kept in the loop over William's affairs? I mean, the wild inconsistency, the double standards, it just takes your breath away. Well, we all know that he and Tom Bradby maintained a close enough relationship that Bradby was able to promote his and Meghan's interests not once but twice. In that interview in South Africa, nobody's asked me that, okay? Except you. He observes that his brother William and Bradby, and I'm quoting now, had a close relationship at that point, and I know they talked a lot, but about what I don't know. Well, first of all, it's his witness statement about what was done to him. So it's got nothing to do with what might have been done to his brother. And certainly it has nothing to do with the news of the world. This is the Sun. So two entirely different publications. This is yet another cynical violation of his brother's privacy to further his own interests. Then he gets on to his mother's police protection. He claims that Diana thought that her protection officers were leaking information about her. To an extent, that is true. However, he then goes on to say that after her divorce, if she'd had police protection with her in August 1997, she'd probably still be alive today. That is a possibility. Except Diana was set up by the BBC and Martin Bashir. What does this have to do with phone hacking by the News of the World, and he's suing the Sun for what the News of the World did? I mean, out of time. It's a fair comment insofar as it goes, but it's misapplied. Then he has one of his targets is a tabloid journalist by the name of Duncan Lawscombe, who, in my opinion, looks like a werewolf and is little better than one. And even though I am here to criticize, criticism is both the positive and the negative, so bear with me. Well, because Lawscombe was evidently for several years the Sun's royal editor, and wrote a biography of Harry called The Inside Story. This is from the witness statement, by the way. I know this to be true because Loscombe and I crossed swords when I was publishing my Meghan and Harry book. And I was on some TV show and he viciously attacked me. And afterwards, I told the producers of the show, never ask me back. You set me up and I don't like being set up, and certainly not by a pig like that. I don't think I used the word pig. I think I used something even more colourful and descriptive. Not an obscenity, but something that was very incisive. And I did it right in front of everybody, including him. So, Harry, the witness statement says, and I've got to read it out because I agree with him here. On the rare occasion that I spoke with him, he made me feel endlessly guilty for not liking him. Well, I don't agree with that part, because why would you feel guilty about not liking someone? The guy's a creep and is an overt creep. And he's ugly to boot. Now, you can't help the way your features are configured, but you certainly can help the expression on your face, and you can help what you do with the features on your face. And I'm sure he'd be perfectly nice looking if his ghastly personality and didn't shine through the way it does. But anyway, he made me feel endlessly guilty for not liking him, so much so that I desperately tried to like him. But I mean, sorry, this is actually, even though it's pejorative of Duncan Loscombe, it is a pathetic attempt on Harry's part to play upon our heartstrings and the court's heartstrings. With hindsight, I now feel like he was grooming me. I mean, really, Harry, the guy's a creep, but, quite frankly, when you make statements like this, you show so are you. He also offered to tell my ex-police protection officer, Bill Renshaw, all the secrets of the dark arts and so on. I can believe that, but I don't think he'd have been telling all. I think he'd have been just manipulating. Duncan would follow us everywhere and often turn up in places before we even got there. How he knew we would be there now seems obvious. Well, that is a conclusion that Harry is drawing that needs to be confirmed. And unless it is confirmed with hard evidence, the news of the world could have been feeding him information. They were from the same stable, companies, two different papers, not actually in competition with each other, because the Sun is a weekly newspaper and the Mail on Sunday was a Sunday paper. So earlier in his witness statement, Harry made the point that journalists cooperate with each other against celebrities and public figures. And this is journalists who represent different publications and different companies. In fact, they represent competing companies who are sometimes deadly competitors. So he's asserting that these deadly competitive journalists collude with each other and provide each other with information. But when Loscombe gets the information, it had to be from phone hacking by his company, not the sister company that has already been investigated and was wound up because of its illegal activities. And two, if I'm not mistaken, of Andy Coulson and Ron Goodman, I think both went to prison. So I think he's stretching things. Then he touches upon the sibling rivalry between him and his brother. He makes a very pointed dig at William and says that he discovered during the course of the litigation that William appeared to know, quotes, an awful lot more about phone hacking than Harry did, although he did not tell me if that was the case. Well, William's possession of knowledge has no place in Harry's witness statement. And since William's possession of knowledge to a large extent relates to the news, if not totally, and I think almost totally, if not totally, relates to the news of the world, how does any of this apply to Harry? Then he asserts that William received a huge sum of money from news group newspapers in 2020. So having violated the confidence, because that agreement was confidential and wasn't revealed by either news group newspapers or Prince William, but Harry, the great protector of everybody's rights, liberties, and freedoms, not to mention privacy and confidences. He's protecting everybody's confidences, especially his brother's, by violating them. I tell you, you have to laugh. He also neglects to say that William handed over this huge sum to his charity, Harry's charity. Of course, credit is never given where it's due, not if he can berate and denigrate at the same time. He certainly learned his lessons well from his wife. He says, news group newspapers still settled his claim for a huge sum of money in 2020 without subjecting him to a similar strikeout application, without any of the public being told, and seemingly with some favourable deal in return for him going quietly, so to speak. This goes to prove the existence of this secret agreement between the institution and senior executives at news group newspapers. So, he's violating a confidence to prove a speculative point, which is that there was a secret deal and that this secret deal was ominous when there was no secret agreement and it was not ominous. It was the standard confidential agreements that take place on a daily basis when matters are settled out of court. So it was a secret agreement, but a global agreement? No, it wasn't, Harry. It was simply a standard, discreet agreement. That's nothing ominous about it. It's a ridiculous claim that you've made. Out-of-court settlements are made all the time, and you have violated your brother's confidences. Then Harry said that he was not surprised that the senior courtiers had opted not to discuss phone hacking with him when he was younger because they considered him to be the irresponsible brother. Well, Harry, you've proven in this witness statement that not only are you the irresponsible brother, but you're treacherous as well. Because to further your own agenda, you are violating confidences. Because you can't have it both ways. If the agreement was meant to be secret, why are you using it? Then he says that James Murdoch. So now we get to use. Harry was never as manipulative as he's become under Meghan's ministrations. And she is the arch manipulator. And he's really learning very well. He's suckling at the breast of the treacherous beast. Some would say. He says that he met in around 2020. He's pretty vague, but I'll tell you where they met. They met in Sicily. A kindred spirit in James Murdoch, the younger son of Rupert. The elder brother's name is Lachlan. In his witness statement, he says he met James at a Google camp where, quote unquote, he made a real effort to try and come and talk to me despite my security detail trying to keep me away from him. Presumably they thought I'd get into a heated argument with him or worse. Well, Harry, they would have heard how you attacked Lord Manson. And they would have seen, if they didn't know it, because they hadn't been with you that long, that you had a propensity for flying off the handle and launching yourself at people the way missiles are launched at adversaries. According to Harry, I got the distinct impression that having broken away from the cult, notice the word cult, that is the Murdoch dynasty, he was starting to show signs that he wanted to do things differently and make amends for the past. Given that he had broken away from his family's history, and I was about to do the same with mine. You see, Harry regards the royal family as a cult. He's actually worshipping the chief worshipper and follower of the cult of Meghan. But he's got the cult part right. He simply got the wrong end of that stick. I felt that we were kindred spirits of sorts. Well, I'm not aware that James Murdoch has ever said that the Murdoch press was a cult. He might have said other things about it, but not that it was a cult. And Harry has privately led people to believe that he regards the royal family as a cult because Meghan has opened his eyes to what cults are all about. And of course, now that she's opened his eyes, he worships at her feet. Well, they met in Sicily, if I'm not mistaken, when there was a climate change conference. And at the time, Harry and everyone else was, because Harry flew in, do you remember? Harry and Meghan, between them, took something like 4 private jet flights in a matter of 10 days. He, after she, because he left her at home with Archie, who was recently born, because this was in August, if I remember correctly. And Archie was too young to fly up to Balmoral to accept the Queen's invitation to go to stay, but he wasn't too young to accept Elton John's invitation to fly a further distance to the south of France than Balmoral is from the south of England. And then he flew by private plane again to Sicily, where, do you remember, he appeared on stage barefooted? And there were endless yachts and 114 private jets, all speaking about climate change and how the rabble, not that they use that word, but that's their sentiment, the rabble, that is you and I, we are the rabble. The rabble needs to be kept in its place. We're not allowed to travel, but they're allowed to travel. We're not allowed our 1 or 2 holidays a year, but they're allowed to take private jets 8, 10, and 20 times a year. And the last point, if I remember correctly, is where he touches upon Rebekah Brooks. In his witness statement, he says he was absolutely astonished that Rebekah Brooks was cleared of phone hacking by a jury at the Old Bailey in 2014. Now, it's a jury trial, so we know that Harry doesn't approve of freedom of the press, because the rabble, like you and I, are rabble. The rabble not only can't know what they should be believing and what is responsible for them to believe, because they need to be taught by the geniuses of like Harry and Meghan, but clearly now he's criticizing jury trials because the jury got it wrong. So maybe he should have a wing of the Aspen Institute to look into the possibility of abolishing trial by jury. He says, because Rebekah Brooks had been the editor of the News of the World, and she was found not guilty by the jury. Now, it was a long and extensive trial, and both sides threw their best bulls into the ring. And the jury, unless Harry's now trying to imply that the jury was corrupt, dishonest, or maybe just so dumb that you really shouldn't have trial by jury anymore, that they got it really wrong because he doesn't agree with their verdict. The arrogance and the impertinence of the man is beyond belief. He then says, having met her once with my father when she was hosting the Sun Military Awards at the Imperial War Museum in London, and having seen her essentially masquerading as someone she wasn't, by using the military community to try and cover up all the appalling things that she and her newspapers had done, I felt this surprise at her acquittal even more personally, especially as I had been duped into thinking that she was okay at our meeting. So, first of all, we have Harry now introducing elements into the trial that have nothing to do with the trial, because he's suing the Sun. He's not sowing the news of the world. Then he's pontificating that because she and the son were supporting the military by having the Sun Military Awards. And the Sun is the most popular newspaper in this country. And I think they should be commended for supporting the military with their awards. I think that's wonderful. He's accusing her of hypocrisy, but he's not accusing himself of masquerading when he does the exact same thing that she did, because he's been using the military and his military connections to boost himself as this wonderful humanitarian bleeding heart who loves people so much, and he loves the military, and he's there for the military to such an extent that when they have approached him to do things, he's in California, unavailable. But his first duty, as he swore to them, was going to be the military. Well, that was lost decades sentiment. There's a new sentiment. The caravan has moved on, and he and the caravan driver now have new bandwagons to jump upon. So, having laid the ground by snaring at her in actually terms that equally apply to him, he then says that she ignored his requests to settle his dispute over phone hacking before his wedding to Meghan in 2018. Well, Mr. Justice Fancourt has already picked up the anomaly of Harry saying that he didn't know certain things and so couldn't issue proceedings. But then he issues proceedings and then is referring in this witness statement to knowledge he possessed before he knew. I mean, it doesn't make sense. If he knew, and therefore he should have issued proceedings. And if he issued them out of time, he has to come up with another reason for why he didn't issue them out of time. Not ignorance and lack of knowledge, because he asserts that he knew. Also, he misses the basic point that when you threaten to sue a newspaper, if you then say you're going to settle, it means you know you have a weak case or no case at all. So obviously the woman was going to ignore his requests to settle. She would have been remiss to news group newspapers and its shareholders had she been throwing money at him because he, Prince Harry, with his overinflated opinion of himself, required that she settle and give him a commensurate sum. What was he going to do with the £1 million that he hoped to get out of news group newspapers? What was he going to do with that money? Was he going to give it to Invictus, the way his brother gave his settlement? Or was he going to give it to Archibald, the way he gives everything else? I think that's the question nobody needs to answer. I think we know rivers run downstream. Rivers don't flow upstream. And charity starts at home. H? We're charitable and charity starts at home. Yes, it does. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please remember to keep the questions and comments coming in, because I need your questions and comments to know what is of interest to you, so that I can then address the issues that you find of interest. Okay, thank you so much. God bless. And if you have enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. See you on Coronation Day.